Welcome, everyone, to the State of Football Season 2, Part 20. And it is probably for the first time here, or it is for the first time here, a legit Prospect Profits takeover, as we've got the whole crew with us today. And we'll be running through some team breakdowns for you guys, basically doing a profits show for you here, as well as talking about some of the guys who the NFLPA Bowl has on their watch list, which we are, of course, eyeing down. The NFLPA Bowl is big fan. We are big fans of the NFLPA Bowl, I should say, and I'm really excited to talk about some of those players. We've got our senior scout here to talk about a bunch of the players on that list that he's looked at and likes so far. So we'll get through that, get through some team breakdowns for you. Everyone, thanks so much for being here. We've got Jack Despeaux making his Prospect Profits takeover debut here. Jack, I'll give you the floor here to talk to the people real quick.
Yeah, sitting around at sunny Ocean City, Maryland right now. My internet is hanging on by a thread, but it's going to be a good time. I've been waiting to be on State of Football. I'm very happy to be here.
Absolutely.
Yes,
and Lorenz, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, we're happy to have you. You know, I usually don't get to see you guys when it's that early in the morning for you. So this is a whole new perspective. Well, Alec at times because we've done the show, but Jack not really. So, this is great. I'm really excited. Got the Browns and Chiefs to start. And then we're going to talk about a couple of these prospects on the NFLPA Bowl watch list. So, packed, loaded show today, a lot of topics, and I'm ready to get into it.
Absolutely. Let's get it started right out the gate here. Jack, start us off with the Cleveland Browns and Kansas City Chiefs breakdowns. Which one do you want to start with?
We'll start with the Browns. So usually we're cutting these just a little bit shorter. If you follow our show, The Prospect Profits, we go a little. We're going to make these a little bit more condensed than usual, just because we're covering 4 teams today. So the Browns, they drafted Greg Newsome II, the corner from Northwestern. This past year, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, the linebacker out of Notre Dame. Anthony Schwartz, wide receiver from Auburn, fan of the show. James Hudson III, offensive tackle out of Michigan. Tommy Togiai, I hope I said that right. Defensive tackle out of Ohio State. Tony Fields II, linebacker out of West Virginia. Richard LeCount III, the safety out of Georgia. And Demetric Felton, the running back / wide receiver guy out of UCLA. A lot of guys with seconds or thirds in their name in this Browns draft class. Young talent on their first-year deal. So these are guys who are studs or close enough to it, who are still on that rookie contract, so they're really cheap. I listed Denzel Ward, their corner, Jedrick Wills, their last year rookie offensive tackle. He had a great first season, and then Baker Mayfield, their starting quarterback. Not really sure if I consider Baker a stud, but I figured he's good enough to include on this list. And when you have a good enough quarterback on the roster who's on a rookie deal, it really elevates the rest of your team as a whole. So, what do you guys think about this young configuration? This cheap, reusable, quality talent. Lorenz, I'll let you talk about it first.
I mean, look, if you have the first overall pick every single year, you better have some young studs on your deal, right? And 2 of the ones they took were obviously Myles Garrett, and he was the first overall pick. He's already been extended, but he's part of that young core as potentially the best pure defensive end in football. That's a conversation to have another day. I like Denzel Ward. He's a number 1 corner. Jedrick Wills is a franchise left tackle. Baker Mayfield, I don't think is ever going to be a huge difference maker, Pro Bowl caliber type quarterback. I mean, he might sneak in there, but you're good to go to compete as long as you got Baker Mayfield. Like I said, I don't think he's got that super high ceiling to be that Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady type guy for years to come. But he's a solid quarterback in the NFL. And then I like the draft. Greg Newsome, I thought talent-wise could have been up there with the top guys or a little behind them in that second tier. Just had a lot of injury concerns. I think he's going to play opposite to Denzel Ward, and that's now with Greedy Williams as well. That's a loaded cornerback room there. JOK, we had Owusu-Koramoah. We had him, and a lot of other people had him go in the first round. Some question marks. They get him. He's already flying around in preseason doing what he does. As a modern-day will linebacker, congrats, you just drafted a starter in the second round. Anthony Schwartz is a speed guy. I get it. It's going to open up the offense. It's going to be better than what the stats show for this team. And then James Hudson, I thought, tested poorly. That might he's a really good athlete on film. Had a lot of impressive stuff working to the second level. Tested poorly, so there might be some red flags there. Tommy Tage was a good run defender at Ohio State, so a lot of contributors. I think Tony Fields can be a backup. Richard LeCount could have gone higher. Demetric Felton had a tremendous Senior Bowl week. I think they got value, and they got players that have a chance to make this roster, even with their last picks in the draft. So I really like what they did.
Yeah, Alec, anything else you want to add there?
No, I mean, anytime you're able to get Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah in that second round range, which I think we all had him graded as a first rounder, was a really shocking player. Dropped to 52, so that's a steal. Greg Newsome in the first, great pick, and then they really did a solid job later in the draft, fill in some depth needs, and I think that it was a really smart draft for them, and the way they've been building this roster has been really smart as well. Andrew Berry deserves a ton of credit for the team that he's put together.
Andrew Berry, at least what he's done in terms of financials and resources. In this 2021 season, the Browns are going to have $18.5 million in cap space. That's not bad entering a season. It gets a little dicey in 2022. You know, this upcoming offseason, they're only expected to have $3 million in cap space. I'm sure that'll rise as time comes, and I'm sure they'll roll over some of that 2021 cap. You know, that's that $3 million number, not as healthy as you'd like to see. But they did recently extend Myles Garrett, like Lorenz said. You know, they have paid some of these players, so I think it's going to be all right for them. They are projected to have 8 picks in this next draft. So that's going to, you know, they like these influxes of young talent. The Browns have been a team that drafts a lot, like Lorenz also said, because they drafted first overall quite a few times. And then looking at the strengths, weaknesses, and average or unproven positions at their roster, I think they're strong at running back, wide receiver, tight end, and offensive line. I think they're strong in their pass rush and their defensive backs. I really like, you know, how they've added to their defense backs, you know, adding Greg Newsome to a Denzel Ward, to a Grady Williams. That is a strong, you know, cornerback room. I think they're weak. I think they're really only weak on the interior defensive line. As an Eagles fan, I watched Malik Jackson. He flashes at times, but you know, if he can stay healthy, he's not. You don't want him to be the single, you know, like the mainstay piece to your interior defensive line. And then they got Andrew Billings, who they signed. I believe after the Bengals let him go or didn't re-sign him. Billings, probably just a guy, you know, in that defense. As long as he can play, you know, as long as this interior group can do average to slightly above average work, you know, that's enough to make Myles Garrett's job a little bit easier. But overall, I think that position group's kind of a weak spot. And then at average and unproven, I think their linebackers, you know, I think they're a mostly young group. I think they're still kind of unproven. I think, you know, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah is a guy that we're all high on. But I don't really count rookies towards, you know, strengths, weaknesses. I only really give them unproven. I'm a stickler like that. Quarterback, we already talked about Baker Mayfield. Lorenz, I think you put it best where he said he's a guy who he's not going to, you know, be that Aaron Rodgers or be that stud, that like star-studded player. But he'll get the job done for you. So I have him listed as average. And honestly, you know, this kind of shows this is a strong roster. You know, there's only really one clear defined weakness, in my opinion, in that interior defensive line, and it's really not that bad. You know, Malik Jackson can be a starter. Andrew Billings is kind of, like I said, kind of a guy who you don't want to be a mainstay, but he can work in that defense. Alec, what do you think about this roster, these resources? You know, how do you feel about this Browns team as a whole?
Yeah, well, I mean, honestly, looking through their roster is it's fun to see. There's a ton more strengths than you look at the average to unproven or weaknesses, and the average to unproven are guys that I would typically bet on. Talking about Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, that's a guy that I would bet on. I think that this team might have a decent or should have a decent pass rush with Myles Garrett on the outside. I think they've done a great job really building this team. Of course, interior defensive line is questionable, but they have a lot of young players there, honestly, that in Tommy Togiai, Marvin Wilson, and they signed another guy too. But I remember another draft guy being signed there. But they've done a lot to really build that. And when you build in the trenches like they have, and really put some young talent there, it could work for them. I mean, they're a run heavy team that has all the options in the world to pass. I really like the roster development and the roster building that they've been able to put together.
Yeah, and that other side of that pass rush, I didn't say it, is Jadeveon Clowney, and I've never been a particularly high proponent of Jadeveon Clowney, but the NFL is, he's at worst an athletic dude who's got some pass rushing abilities. So that's just another guy that can make Myles Garrett's job just a little bit easier, or a guy who can benefit from having Myles Garrett on the other side. Lorenz, anything else you wanted to add to this talk?
Yeah, I think it's a really good roster. I just wish it was a little more up the middle on the defensive side of the ball. The offensive line's one of the best in football. You got the wide receivers. You obviously got the pass rush. You got the DBs. I'm just a little worried about that middle of the defense. They signed Anthony Walker. I think he's banged up, so now you're relying on Mac Wilson and JOK there at the linebacker spot. So that's a little bit iffy. That's where they're beatable. But this is a team that should, on paper, win a lot of games this season. This is a very strong roster.
Oh, I can't hear Jack. Can you hear him?
He's muted. Gotta unmute yourself, bud.
No, still muted.
There you go.
There you go.
You can hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I swear I clicked unmute a few minutes ago. Yeah, the last part segment, their over-under is 10.5 for this year. That's a little close for me. I think that they get 10 wins, so I'll take that under. How about you guys?
Ooh. I'm gonna take the over on that. I think that they can pull out. I think they can pull out somewhere around 11 wins in a 17-game season. Yeah, I'm gonna take the over.
Yeah, they should. I'll go over too. It's a good line, but I think they win 11, even 12. I mean, with this roster, you could make a case they're going to win a lot of games. On paper, it's really strong. I trust in Kevin Stefanski. I think this is a really good offensive line. You got the running backs. Man, I'm excited about this team. I think they can give the Ravens a run for their money in that division.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, fair enough. I still don't fully trust the Browns, so that's why I went under, but I do think they get 10. Next up is the Kansas City Chiefs. This year in the draft, they took Nick Bolton, the linebacker to Missouri, Creed Humphrey, the interior offensive lineman out of Oklahoma, Joshua Kando, the edge rusher out of FSU, Noah Gray, the tight end out of Duke, Cornell Powell, the wide receiver out of Clemson, and Trey Smith, the interior offensive lineman out of Tennessee. Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith have already, gotten first-team reps. Trey Smith's gotten a lot of positive reviews. Despite, he was drafted so late because of those blood clots. But so far, so good on his field. And we're all Trey Smith fans here, so I'm happy to see him succeed so far. Young talent on the first-year deal. They extended Patrick Mahomes, so he can't be included in this. But a guy they traded for, Orlando Brown, he's still on his rookie deal. So he's on this list. And then I included Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He's a guy that, I don't think is fully proven quite yet, but I think he, in this offense, has shown enough to be considered, a stud on a young talent or on a first-year deal. I prefer seeing him over, watching Le'Veon Bell on that team, especially because I had CEH on my fantasy team last year. But Alec, what do you think of this draft class? What do you think of these young guys in the rookie deal?
I mean, it's so impressive what the Chiefs did with this draft class when you consider being one of the most talented rosters, maybe not the healthiest roster, but one of the most talented rosters in football, to come into this draft with very minimal picks since they traded for Orlando Brown, and to come out of this draft with players who I think were such deals at where they got them. I mean, Nick Bolton it was clear in the Super Bowl that they had a problem at the second level. And they get Nick Bolton, who is one of my favorite linebackers in this draft. Then they get Creed Humphrey to really anchor down the center of that line, right? And then they get Trey Smith in the 6th round, and he's going to start for them for years. Not to mention they got Joe Thuney and they got Orlando Brown to also start on that offensive line. this offensive line turned from one of the worst in football in that Super Bowl, and I know that was because of injury. I'm not overreacting to that. Like, it was definitely they were injured, but it was horrible. To one of the most reliable spots on this team. I think that this whole offense is going to be improved because of this draft, and then this whole defense is going to be improved because of this draft. The one pick I was a little bit questioning on is Josh Kando. Didn't have him rated there, but I still think that it's a player that they could potentially develop. Otherwise, I really love this team. They've got studs on the defensive side. They've got studs on the offensive side. I think Cornell Powell is another pick too that could end up being a real steal for them on that offense side. Could be their wide receiver too, honestly, with the way that Mecole Hardman has played the last couple of years. So I really love what they were able to do in this draft.
Yeah, Lorenz, anything you want to add?
I mean, they went into the offseason, like Alex said, had a huge need at the offensive line, acquire Orlando Brown for their first-round pick, but also get a second-round pick back. So you have 2 late second-round picks, and you turn them into Nick Bolton and Creed Humphrey, who I wouldn't have batted an eye if they'd have gone first round. So I thought they did a tremendous job there, got some value late. That's why Brett Veach is one of the best GMs in the business. They're going to have to continue drafting well. They're going to have to continue having off seasons where they reload as they did in this one. Hey, if they keep that up on that 10-year deal or whatever Mahomes is on there, they're going to be in Super Bowl contention, every single one of them.
That's true. All right, so looking at, speaking of Veach, they've got $7.9 million in salary cap right now for this year. Next year they got $20.8 million. So, you'd like to see some bigger numbers for that 22 number. I think that's still better than I have the Browns. Yeah, the Browns at $3 million. So the Chiefs, despite that massive contract they just handed to Patrick Mahomes, their salary cap isn't actually too bad for the immediate future. They're projected 7 picks in the 2022 draft. For their strengths, I gave them quarterback, running back, wide receiver, offensive line, and tight end. So the entire offense is a strength. And if you've watched the Chiefs ever play, you can see that front and center. I give them the strength at defensive end, assuming that Chris Jones plays. He's currently listed on our lads as a defensive end. I know he plays kind of interior and exterior, but the assumption here is that he won't play, or my assumption is that he won't play. And that puts him that would put that position at average or unproven, more so on the average side. I think Frank Clark is a fine pass rusher, but I think it goes to average when you lose that Chris Jones element. Again, I usually consider him as an interior guy, but he goes in and out. I gave them strength at safety with Tyrann Mathieu and Juan Thornhill. I think those are pretty solid guys. Weaknesses, I gave them interior defensive line and cornerback. I really wish this Chiefs team would really invest more money into the cornerback position, but I had a friend kind of point this out to me the other day. The Chiefs are a team that have hand-built their team to succeed in the modern NFL, which means that they put all their money and resources and all their, everything that they could into a strong passing attack and, doing essentially the bare minimum on defense to make sure that Patrick Mahomes, that offense can succeed. If they could, round out a nice little quarterback room in the near future, this team could be unstoppable. They truly wouldn't have that many weaknesses. And at average and unproven, like I said, assuming Chris Jones doesn't play, then that pass rush as a whole kind of starts to becomes more average. And I'm giving the linebacker room unproven. I'm a big Nick Bolton guy. I think that he's really going to help that group out. But again, a rookie role, I'm keeping it unproven as of right now. Lorenz, what do you think of this team? What do you think of this offense, this defense, these strengths, weaknesses, and how they've handled their ways financially?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, the defense isn't great. You added Frank Clark there, gave him a whole bunch of money, and that was probably the worst move that they've made in the last 10 years or so. I can't remember another one. So that's still hurting your cap. That's hurting your pass rush. That he hasn't been what you wanted him to be, but you still have some studs, some difference makers like Tyrann Mathieu. Juan Thornhill is a good young guy. You talk about Chris Jones, obviously he's a stud, and then the offense. I mean, as long as Mahomes is running that behind a capable offensive line, weapons like Tyreek Hill, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, you're going to be beating a lot of teams. You're going to be putting up a lot of points. It just is what it is, and You got to be aggressive on defense, stop drives, bend but don't break, force some field goals, get some interceptions, force some turnovers, and that's really how they've built this aggressive defense under Steve Spagnuolo, who's a great fit there, and that's what makes him so dangerous. So maybe on paper you might say, hey, you can't win a Super Bowl with that defense, but I do think on their day they can stop the run up front. They got some pieces like Derek Nottie there who are solid. And then you gotta pass against it. You got some safeties. You got some playmakers. Long story short, I think this defense on its day can get the job done.
I'd agree with that. And Alec, anything else you want to add?
I mean, this team is really good.
Yeah.
They're probably going to win a lot of games.
Well, speaking of winning a lot of games, their over/under is set at 12.5, which is, I've joked about this enough. I don't know enough about gambling, but that's probably the highest over/under I've seen yet. I'll take that over. This Chiefs team's going to win. They're going to win, week in, week out. I think that they can get. I think with a 17-week season, you can expect, or a 17-game season, you can expect, them to be hitting that 14 mark pretty easily, frankly. Lorenz, Alec, over/under on that 12.5.
Over.
Over. They seem to win 13 games every year. You get an extra game. I think if you're going under here, you got to be betting that this year the injury bug is going to bite. But
yeah,
they're going to be tough to beat. They're going to win a lot of games. They're going to be competing for the AFC. It just is what it is. I think over is a solid bet even at 12.5, which is a really aggressive line.
Yeah,
over 100%.
All right, so those are the Browns and the Chiefs. Alec, I'll let you take it away for the next section.
Well, we're gonna give Jack a little breather there as we're gonna go jump into the NFLPA Bowl guys, some of the watch list guys that we are excited about. Really, they've released some players that we've gotten to take a look at, and especially our senior scout here has gotten to take a look at. So, hey. Let's jump right into it here, Lorenz. Let's start with the quarterback position. We've got two guys on the quarterback watch list here. We got Malik Willis from Liberty, Brock Purdy from Iowa State. Let's start with Malik Willis here, Lorenz. Thoughts on Malik Willis?
Yeah, so obviously this watch list has a lot more names. I just picked out a couple that I want to talk about that maybe aren't talked about a lot, and that were really intriguing names. Obviously, I haven't seen everyone on this watch list because it's hundreds of names, but those are a couple. Malik Willis, Liberty quarterback, transferred from Auburn because he got beat up by Bo Nix, which that's a whole nother story that we can get into. But you talk about physical traits, you talk about a big-time arm, and you talk about the ability to run around, make plays, make really difficult, tough plays, and just be a playmaker at the quarterback position. That's Malik Willis. What we're looking for with him as evaluators is, hey, we know you can make the difficult plays. Can you now make the easy plays? Mm-hmm. That's going to be the question for Malik Willis.
Absolutely. And let's do Brock Purdy here, who is someone who was getting hype last year, decided to go back to school. What are your thoughts on Brock Purdy?
Yeah, great nickname. First of all, they call him Corn Jesus out there at Iowa State. So I think
he's already a first-round pick then.
I mean, gotta be. He's a bit of a smaller guy, so that's going to be the knock. Not the biggest arm, but he had some bad decision-making games last year, but usually that's something that he needs to hang his hat on, that he needs to really be consistent in. Brock Purdy, I really like his mechanics, and you got to factor in, if you're watching him, he's not getting a lot of help. That offensive line, I don't think, is great as a pass-blocking unit. His best weapons are really Charlie Kohler and the other tight end, so he's forced to make a lot of plays over the middle to really have a conservative offense, move the sticks. There's not a lot of big plays. Does have Breece Hall. It's a good run game. It's obviously a good defense there at Iowa State. But I think he could, down the road, just be a long-time backup if he can regain sort of his mantra of being a consistent passer, making good decisions. We'll see a little bit there. That's actually a deep pass. But his calling card is really going to be being a solid player from within the pocket. There we see it on an RPO, hitting him over the middle. He's taking it to the house. But he's accurate. He's got good mechanics. Those are the things that Brock Purdy's gonna be building his draft stock on.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's let's talk about one of the running backs on this watch list here. We got FIU's Devontae Price.
This is a really exciting name who was popping up on a lot of spring lists, made a lot of watch lists, and rightfully so, man. Devontae Price, he's a big back at 6'2", 220. I think even 225 is what he's up to for the coming season. And what really sets him apart for a lot of other big backs is he's got the legit long speed, 4.5 flat type of runner. If I'd had to estimate it, he can rip off the big run. I like his vision. I like his balance. I think he can break tackles. He's a really intriguing name from a school that's not getting a lot of TV looks, but Florida International back Devontae Price is someone who needs to be on everybody's radar, and I think has serious day 2 upside. I mean, I just put him in my top 5 running backs for the entire draft. He's very talented.
Yeah, and this next guy comes from a little school called Alabama here. Brian Robinson, the running back, who's taking over for who was the first running back taken off the board, Najee Harris, last year.
Yeah, Brian Robinson, he's a tough physical runner. Obviously, they're in backup duties for the Alabama Crimson Tide. Like I said, he's got that toughness to run through tackles, to lower his shoulder, to use that stiff arm to really stay on his feet through contact. That's one of the things that really make him exciting. But he's also, I think he's got the vision. He can carry the load inside. I think he projects as a very reliable backup or depth type runner who, hey, we know running backs get hurt. It's a wear and tear position. He might never be that exciting number 1 running back type, but I think he can have a long career in a gap scheme, running inside, picking up the tough yards, being a true grinder. I think that's something that Brian Robinson out of Alabama could really do. But the one thing is they got a lot of young talent coming into that running back room. So first of all, he's got to win that job, or his draft stock could take a massive hit. But if he can win that job, that's someone who I think we can rightfully be pretty excited about being a draftable player, Brian Robinson.
Yeah, and now next we got we're going to move on to this wide receiver list here. One that you wanted to talk about is a guy who's probably going to make the all names list for this next NFL draft, Alec Pierce.
You got to go with the other name that we have. You got to go with the obviously. You guys are going to see the other name I thought he was bringing up. Yeah, Alec Pierce out of Cincinnati. He had some injury concerns, some injury questions last season, so why he didn't play a lot. He's a big dude at 6'3", 205 or 208, I think is his official measurement, and he can fly downfield. He's got legit sub 4.5 speed to stretch the field vertically. That's really what he's doing for that offense. Not on that play that we're seeing right there, but Alec Pierce, he's got some route running to him. I think it's just a matter of staying on the field, being that number 1 weapon. But if we're just purely projecting great traits and projecting him to the next level, if he can be a bit more physical, show that he can do things on special teams, he's another guy with day 2 upside, in my opinion. He's very talented. He's got good hands. He's got some crazy late adjustment catches, one-handed catches all over his film. And he's someone people really got to look out for, because I haven't seen a lot of talk around Alec Pierce, but he should be receiving it because he's got the size, got a lot of tools to work with.
Yeah, next we got from Nicholls State here, Dejeen Dixon.
Yeah, Dixon is someone who I thought you were bringing up when we were talking about name here, but yeah, he's someone who I was really surprised by. First of all, not easy to get Nicholls State film, but once I did, he's another bigger receiver at north of 6'2", north of 200 pounds, but he's a good route runner, and that's just not something you expect. You don't expect the ability to hip sync, to use that ankle flexion, get in and out of breaks. You can see my report right there on the site. Love to see it, 6'2", 4'2", but he does some stuff in the slot. He does some stuff outside. He's got that size that's obviously going to translate. I think he's a solid athlete. He's someone who I could see taking over either a big slot role because of that toughness that he does have, maybe on the outside become a full-time contributor, or just be very good depth. I think he's going to play on teams, and he's another small school kid that people really got to know about because Dejeen Dixon is doing a great job there at Nicholls State, and I think he's draftable and then some. I think he's someone who can come off the board early day 3 if you're looking forward to how he projects to the league, because of that size. We know teams value it, and rightfully so.
Yeah, and now next little subtle plug here for the scouting lens that came out, I believe it was last week. Trey McBride from Colorado State.
The best senior tight end in the country, in my opinion, and a really good player, Trey McBride at Colorado State. The first thing, I mean, he's a rocked up dude. He's just 6'3", but he just looks so much bigger because he's really well built, bit like a brick house, and he's a good blocker. It's the first thing that stands out. Even if there are some reps that aren't technically super clean, he's hanging on. He's doing a great job being a good blocker, creating movement. I think he fits really well into that type of Shanahan offense. Just he's not George Kittle, but think about how they use George Kittle as an integral part of that wide zone run game, and then throw him the ball back on split flow, play action, things like that. That's something Trey McBride can do. Toughness carries over to after the catch. Really a delight to watch, and his hands are tremendous. He's making tough catches over the middle on those post glance route types in that offense, and he's someone who's really got to be put on a lot more people's radars. I keep saying this for these players. That's why I picked them. But I think he's a complete tight end, and he could start. I wouldn't be surprised.
Now I go down to Coastal Carolina here for the next guy, Isaiah Likely.
Completely different from Trey McBride. Not a lot of ability in line as a blocker, but he's someone who can stretch the field vertically. Really a good athlete in a straight line. Not a big route runner yet. That's something I'm really looking forward from potentially seeing for him, to see if he can create some organic separation in the short and intermediate areas using that athleticism as a route runner. But just as a pure vertical threat between the 20s, I think there's a role for Isaiah Likely. Tracks the ball well, reliable hands, and then, like I said, he's got that speed. He's going to test very well. He's a good player. He's a good tight end. Just not the inline type tight end that you're expecting.
Yeah, and moving on to offensive lineman here, a guy who I am almost sick and tired of hearing you talk about, but is a really good player, Justin Schaefer from Georgia.
Yeah, I'm really excited about both these guards that I picked from this list. Just love to see them on there. Justin Schaefer is someone who's a big, thick guard, around 6'2", 6'3", in the 320, 325 range. And if you're looking for a guy in a gap scheme who can create movement, who can be aggressive, who can displace vertically, hey, he's your dude. He's not going to be a scheme fit for everyone. Not the most athletic guy, but if you're running that, I think he can be a backup out the gate. And once he gets acclimated a little bit, he can start. Hey, I think if you can create movement and anchor up front, you can play guard for my team any day. And I think Justin Schaefer can do that. And the next guy here, he's similar. I'm really excited about him as well.
Well, let's jump right into Chasen Hines from LSU.
Yeah, talk about a big dude. He was listed at 349. I don't think he played there. I think his playing weight's in the 330s, but it doesn't take away from the mass that he's really throwing around. He's a good athlete for that. Kind of reminded me a bit of Deontay Brown last year when from Alabama, who they used at the second level, pulling a lot. He's shown it now in preseason, making great reach blocks, doing a really good job. And I think Chasen Hines can be similar. I'm hoping he doesn't have the same weight concerns, but his weight doesn't look as bad as Deontay Brown's did. But yeah, Chasen Hines, I think he's another power type blocker up front. Like I said, I like that agility. I think his ceiling is a little bit higher than a guy like Justin Schaefer, but I do think he's a little more up and down, so he's got to get consistent, and I think he's another guy who's got starter upside and then some. They got two guards there, Ed Ingram and Chasen Hines, on a really good offensive line for LSU that are both NFL players.
Yeah, and speaking of Deontay Brown, let's go to a teammate he probably had to deal with in practice here, LeBrian Ray from Alabama.
Yeah, I mean, you guys would be hearing a lot about LeBrian Ray if it wasn't for injuries. Former 5-star recruit, 6'5", 270, 280 pounds, depending on, at times they'll play him off the edge, they'll play him along the interior. We'll just call him a defensive lineman. He's versatile. He can potentially kick inside full-time at the next level, but a really gifted athlete. A lot of length to him, 34-plus-inch arms for LeBrian Ray. When on the field, I think he's a difference maker on this Alabama front, just calling it like it is. He's just had a bunch of lower body injuries, and it's really going to hurt his draft stock, unfortunately. But if he can play an entire season, if he can show what he's shown in flashes when healthy, he could be rising up draft boards, and he could be one of those early day three gambles. Well, maybe even on day 2, who knows, right? But he could be one of those gambles that if he stays healthy, I think he's got starting ability in the league.
Yeah, and someone who probably does really make the all-name team here for the upcoming season, and I apologize if I butcher it, Tyrekius Tisdale.
Yeah, from Ole Miss. He's another one of these long guys, really good athlete. You can see the flashes with Tisdale creating knockback on offensive linemen. You're just looking for him. You're just looking for some more pass rush moves, for some more finesse, because the power and the ability to convert speed to power is there. With that length, his body looks great. A lot of things to like with Tisdale. Just want to see some more hand usage, thinking quicker, playing faster, not playing as slow as he does. And I think those are a couple of things that are really going to help him out if he can show them. So this is a high ceiling, low floor type prospect, but definitely someone who has NFL and draftable traits.
Yeah, absolutely. And moving on to the second level here, guy who I really like going into this year, Utah's Devin Lloyd.
Yeah, I just ranked him the best linebacker in the country. It's not a great linebacker class this season, but you talk about someone who's very long at 6'3" and who can make plays in space as that weak side will linebacker. I think Devin Lloyd is a great name to look at. Good athlete. I think, like I said, the instincts in space are great with Devin Lloyd. He's got a lot of plays where he's taking away intermediate routes, where he's reading the eyes of the quarterback, getting his hands on the football. Want him to be a little more aggressive, playing downhill, really make an impact as a run defender. That's the big thing he'll have to work on, but I think there's a lot of tools, and there's also some physicality for someone who's in the 230s with that length that carries over very nicely to the NFL game. I'm very excited about Devin Lloyd.
Yeah, next we got Sam Williams from Ole Miss.
Yeah, Ole Miss, a lot of talent on that defense. Couple more linebackers, couple more defensive ends on that list. He's more that stand-up rusher, rush linebacker type. He had some off-the-field issues that we won't get into, but talent-wise, he's good. He's got a lot of athleticism off the edge, can win around the outside shoulders, got some pass rush moves. He's got some power to him. So someone who, based off of talent, I think is a day 2 talent. We'll see how he'll answer those questions about a couple things in his past. But just another talented Ole Miss player where I'm kind of sitting here questioning, hey, how is Ole Miss not better on defense with all these? Might even be more talented on defense. And if you look at the offensive side of the ball, who's obviously got some well-documented playmakers. But there's some dudes on this defense. I wouldn't write it off as easily if they can take a step forward next season.
Yep, and now we got 2 more guys here on the defensive back side. Let's start off with Alontae Taylor from Tennessee.
Yeah, this is my dude. I'm really excited about Alontae Taylor. First of all, A+ human being off the field, was voted to the SEC Leadership's Council by his peers. A lot of people, we know if you follow college football, a lot of players left the Tennessee program this offseason. A lot of things going on there. He said, "No, I'm not leaving. You know, I got unfinished business here," and you really love to see that really sticking with his team. Now a senior, he does some of the best stuff. If you talk about mental alertness, tip balls, adjusting quickly, understanding the game. There's a lot of things to love about Alontae Taylor. Really physical, great tackler. I think he could even play safety with that physicality that he does show. Was a little banged up last season, so the movement skills, if you watch his 2020 film, weren't all there. I think he's a sufficient mover at the cornerback position. If you play a lot of press, I think he's a really good player to add even a cover 2 scheme. I think he would be great because of his ability in the run game. And with a healthy season, man, Alontae Taylor, sky's the limit for him. I'm really excited about him this year on a bad Tennessee team. Hopefully he can make a bit of a name for himself.
Yeah, and final one here out in Piscataway, New Jersey, home state of our guy, Rick Saratella, Avery Young.
Yeah, Avery Young out of Rutgers has obviously kind of been a NFL draft Bible of our scouting, kind of a brand guy. You can definitely say that. Great in press. Really some of the best press technique in the class that I've seen. Love him there. Super physical. They move him to the interior. They move him to the nickel, so he's got inside and outside versatility and playing ability. I think the one concern with Avery Young that kind of stops me from being all in on him is his long speed. I don't think it's great. I don't think he trusts it. It's sufficient, but he's not going to line up with the absolute burners of the league. I think there's a bit of a limitation there. But Avery Young is another day two talent, in my opinion. I know some people on staff are going to say he's a first round talent. Like I said, not all the way there yet, but Rutgers, another program that has struggled, that is on the uptick though. And Avery Young is one of their best players, potentially the best player from an NFL draft standpoint on that entire team.
Yeah, I will not allow any Avery Young slander here. But hey, that's all the guys that we wanted to talk about. There's plenty more guys. So go to the NFLPA Bulls website and check out who they've got on their watch list. It's going to be real exciting this year. Real exciting to see who makes that roster. But we're going to bring Jack back on here and do our final two team breakdowns, and then we're going to get out of here for the morning on the state of football. Jack, why don't you come back out here to talk about the next two teams we got?
Yeah, can you see me? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Like I said, internet's holding on by a thread. All right, so we're going to talk the Dolphins next. The Miami Dolphins, they drafted Jalen Waddle, the wide receiver out of Alabama, Jalen Phillips, the edge rusher out of Miami, Javon Holland, the safety from Oregon, Liam Eichenberg, the offensive tackle out of Notre Dame, Hunter Long, the tight end out of Boston College, Larnell Coleman, the offensive tackle out of Massachusetts, and Garrett Dokes, the running back out of Cincinnati. Youngtown on a first-year deal. I like Christian Wilkins a bit. I really wanted the Eagles to draft him way back in the day. I think instead they got Andre Dillard, so that worked out well. Noah Igbenogany, the corner on the Dolphins, he had a really good first year. And then Mike Gesicki, he's consistently, at least at bare minimum, an athletic, quick tight end who, is kind of right about – a lot of people think is right about to break out even more so. Personally, I like a lot of it. I like the top half of this draft class. I think Jalen Waddle is essentially the perfect fit for this Dolphins for what this Dolphins team needs. Hunter Long is a great safety blanket type. I think he can pair well with Mike Gesicki. Lorenz, what do you think of this Miami team? What do you think of this young core players?
Man, considering how many first-round picks they have and how much they have picked highly, I think it's a little thin. I will say that. I think Christian Wilkins is a good defensive tackle. Noah Igbenogany, I think this season can make the step to be a starting cornerback. Mike Gesicki has proven he's a starting tight end and a weapon in the passing game. I like the Jalen Waddle pick. I was high on Jalen Waddle. I would have liked to see them go offensive line because we'll get to that a little bit. I think they missed last year, and it's going to continue to not be a great unit. Jalen Phillips is just so risky. I like the player. I think he's a good player. I think he fits very well what they want to do from an inside-outside type versatility perspective there for the Dolphins. But he's got the well-documented concussion issues. I'm just worried about him not being a long-term asset for this team. Javon Holland, I just feel like is athletically limited. Tested better than what I thought he was, but you love the instinct, so maybe Brian Flores, who's a great defensive mind, can find a way to get him involved. Not a Liam Eichenberg guy. Hunter Long, if he's going to be your tight end too, congrats. That's a great player there. Then Garrett Dokes, if he's healthy, he's got a lot of upside at the running back position, but it's okay. It's okay. I just think they had so many assets and they had so many opportunities to get young players that should be on this Youngtown on the first deal list and just aren't. So that's I think a bit worrying for this team.
Yeah, Alec, anything you want to add to that?
I don't love their draft as a whole. I will say that look, Jalen Phillips to me was a top 5 talent in this draft. That being said, the concerns with the injuries are too much to put him that high. I still had him as a top 25 player, and taking him at 18 I don't think is the worst If they can get if he stays healthy, they're getting such a steal at 18. But if he doesn't, he might not play a single game for them, or he might only play 1 or 2 games for them. It's such a risk taking him. But Javon Holland being the first safety off the board, I don't love. Not with that, and Liam Eichenberg to come in and be a starting tackle for you, I don't love either. I think that they missed on a couple picks last year, and I feel like they missed again this year, but we'll see how that plays out. Of course, these kids have not written their story yet, but I can't even fault them. I had Austin Jackson fairly highly last year, and they did take him. I'm going to give him another year here. I think that he's got one more year to really prove it. I do like Robert Hunt. I do like some of the other players that they have, young players, and I think that they get another year here to prove it. But as for their picks, I feel like they've missed a ton.
Yeah, I think that's totally reasonable. I think that's a good, not a bad perspective on that. So okay, we'll get into the caps, and then I'll kind of give the money and the resources. Then I'll get a little bit of my take on them. Their current salary cap space, they got $8.1 million for the 2021 season. Next year, they're sitting on $61.3 million. So when you're looking at how this Miami team has built themselves, it's they had their tank years, and their tank years freed up a lot of cap space. So this is kind of seeing the benefits of those tank years and seeing that free space. This should be a team that continues to add talent in some ways over the next couple of years. They are projected 10 picks this coming year. So again, a team that is adding young players, adding, that you want kind of a rotation. You want a healthy intake and output of players. And this, I think Miami is situated well to do that and to continue to improve in that way. Strengths, I like their wide receiver group now. I'm giving the tight end. I'm considering Mike Gesicki a positive. I'm considering him a strength. Maybe in relation to the rest of the league, maybe in what he can offer. I'm not really sold on Mike Gesicki as a player, but I think what he can do in the realm of, having a fast, athletic tight end can open up your your passing game a little bit better. I'm considering it a strength just by like a hair. I like the defensive line. I like the defensive backs. I think they have one of the best, secondaries in the NFL. I think that's clearly a strength for them. I was all in on them getting Byron Jones. They're retaining Xavier Howard, and they got Noah Igbenogany, so that especially that cornerback room is dangerous. Weaknesses, I didn't really see any clear weaknesses. I think you guys might disagree with me on this one. I think their offensive line is average / unproven. I'm also not a Liam Eichenberg guy, but like Alex said, I like a lot of I like some of those guys on the inside. I like Robert Hunt. I like Solomon Kinley. I think there's potential on the interior. Austin Jackson's a guy that I'm still not sold on either, but I think Lorenz is kind of hinting at this. This is a team that also definitely could have gone the Penei Sewell route. I would have been very happy with that. I think you would have, I think while Jalen Waddle is a unique talent, has unique athleticism, has unique abilities, and has proven his abilities, I think they could have gotten, an athletic, guy who could play in that slot role, that underneath routes for them later on.
I think we lost Jack. But Lorenz, you want to talk about the weaknesses of this roster?
That had to happen eventually. He was hitting at it, but yeah, I mean, I don't think the O-line's great. If you want to sell me on the O-line being average, sure. Average, unproven, I can get behind. I think they got another year until they could sort of say, hey, this group needs reworking, but you do got some pieces there. And Robert Hunt and a couple other guys. Jack, you want to take back over?
Yeah, can you see me, hear me again?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir, you're back.
All right, so you're talking offensive line. I'm considering their running back and their linebacker groups average right now. Not too high on them. And then at quarterback, I liked Tua coming out. I wish we would have shown a little bit more. I'm considering him, right now he's somewhere between average and unproven. Certainly unproven because he hasn't really had a full season yet. But right now I'm kind of in the long term projecting Tua to be an average quarterback. So I think that's kind of, where I see this team. Again, I'm a little bit higher on their offensive line than others. I understand if you consider it a weakness, but Fellas, what do you think?
Yeah, I just think it's unproven right now on the offensive line. I think that they do have a really solid roster when you look through it, but is it good enough to compete and to win a Super Bowl? I don't think that they can necessarily win a Super Bowl without severe improvements from Tua. Now, I did really like Tua coming out. I still like Tua. I think he's going to be a solid player for them. I think he just needs some time. But Tua is going to have to be a tractor, not a trailer for this team if they want to push forward towards a Super Bowl, and that's something that he's going to have to work towards. But I love the Jalen Waddle pick. I love the moves that they've made on this defense and on the offense. So I think that they're not strengths and weaknesses wise. They are healthy, but not over the top.
Yeah, Lorenz, anything you want to add?
No, I agree. It's all going to come down to what number one does now, a year and a half removed from his horrific hip injury. That's really what it comes down to, I think, for this team. I think they do have some talent, but there are a lot of question marks. So I don't think they're a contender, but this is obviously a team that wants to make the playoffs this year. Yeah.
And speaking of, contending, their over-under is 9.5. That is, once again, this is why Vegas does it. This is a tough line. Personally, I think the Dolphins are going to start off slow in the season and kind of pick up towards the end. I think once Tua and them all get into the swing of things, I'll give them 10 wins. I think it's going to be tight. I'm not sure if they're going to, if they win 9, I wouldn't be shocked. But I'll give them the over just by a hair. I'm not even sure if they make the playoffs. I think there's a lot of good AFC teams that can make that wild card. How about you guys?
Man, it's tough. I like the line. It's tough to bet on. Vegas might be good at this.
Yeah.
But I love Brian Flores. I love Brian Flores. I think he's a great coach. I'll go under. I'll go slightly under. I just 9.5. If it was 8.5, I could buy it. 9.5. It could go either way with this team. That would be disappointing if they do go under, but right now I can't go. I'm going under. Long story short, I'm going under for the Miami Dolphins.
I'm gonna take the over. I think that just slightly. I think they can pull out a 10-7 season.
All right, fair enough. Then last but not least, the New England Patriots. Lorenz, I know this is a draft class that you in particular were maybe not extremely high on, but extremely high on at least one pick out of here. They drafted Mac Jones, the quarterback out of Alabama, Christian Barmore, the defensive tackle out of Alabama, Ronnie Perkins, the edge rusher out of Oklahoma. This is the guy that Lorenz, I know, was really, really high on. This is, I think they got him in the 3rd round. That's a steal. I'm sorry to take your words out of your mouth, Lorenz. Ramondre Stevenson, the running back out of Oklahoma, hoping to play kind of a LeGarrette Blount role for this Steelers, or not Steelers, for this Patriots team. Cameron McGrone, the linebacker out of Michigan, Joshua Bledsoe, the safety out of Missouri, Will Sherman, the offensive tackle out of Colorado, Trey Nixon, the wide receiver out of UCF. Young talent on the first-year deal. I like Isaiah Wynn, their offensive tackle. I like J.C. Jackson, their corner, and Chase Winovich, their kind of a 3-4 outside linebacker. He has shown a lot of potential. He racks up the sacks. Lorenz, I'll give you the first go because I know you like Ronnie Perkins. What do you think of this draft class?
I did like the draft. Obviously, Mac Jones was someone who I didn't see as a first-round talent, but quarterbacks get pushed up the board. From what he's looked like right now, he might be what they're hoping they're getting, and sort of a reliable guy who can run that offense. I don't think he'll ever be a difference maker for you. I think his ceiling is Kirk Cousins. You just got to hope he hits that. And if you're comfortable with that, that's fine. But I think that offense that they like running is kind of tailored to him getting the ball out quick. I think he's got some accuracy to him. He makes good decisions over the middle of the field. You can just never ask him to be, like we were saying about earlier, that Aaron Rodgers, even that that type player, he's just never going to be for you. It just is what it is. Christian Barmore, a lot of people saw going higher. I thought that was his sweet spot, early second round. I thought that was good value. He's a really good athlete, got some strength to him. Just super inconsistent. You watch one game of Christian Barmore, you might say this is a fifth-round pick. You watch another, you might say it's a first-round pick. So Ronnie Perkins, I love the scheme fit there. He's going to be that outside linebacker type that's going to be able to set the edge, that's going to, just with his hand violence and his power rush ability, going to be lane that rush lane integrity that they like from their pass rush. That's just going to work. I'm just going to bet on that. I'm going to bet on that scheme fit. And then he takes some shots on high upside guys, which I like on day 3, and a guy like Ramondre Stevenson, who's got the size and is light on his feet. Cam McGrone never put it all together at Michigan, but hey, you the athleticism's there. And then I like Trey Nixon. I got to shout this one out because Trey Nixon is a great route runner on the interior and also got legit 4.4 speed. Someone who I was pretty excited about coming out of UCF, and I wouldn't be surprised if he is going to be able to find a role on this Patriots team because that's the type of player that they've always been very successful with. Young talent on a first deal, I'm not crazy about. J.C. Jackson is a really good corner. Chase Vinovich is a starting outside linebacker type. He's going to be playing opposite of Perkins and the other guys that they have off the edge. That's actually a sneaky good group there. And then Isaiah Wynn is good when he's on the field. I mean, he is really good. A lot of people doubted him coming out, said he's a guard. Good job by the Patriots of identifying that. Now just gotta hope that he stays healthy.
Yeah, like anything you want to add to this?
No, I tend to agree with what Lorenz said, but Isaiah Wynn has to stay on the field, and then if he does, this is one of the better offensive lines in the league. But if he doesn't, that's a concern, to say the least.
Yeah, fair enough. Their current salary cap 2021, they're at $14.5 million. In 2022, they're sitting on $23.1 million. So, not a ton. This is a transitional period in the Patriots. I don't think they're going to be that good for a little while. They're going to struggle with having, a tighter cap. That 14.5 right now isn't that bad. That 23.1 for 2022, that's lower than you'd hope. Not terrible, but especially when you consider they only have 6 picks currently in the 2022 draft. They're not going to be adding, there's not as much input-output that you're looking for a healthy roster configuration. Strengths, I gave them tight end. They just added Johnny Smith and Hunter Henry to like the top 2 tight ends in this free agent class. That's going to be a strength for them. Linebacker, I love their inside and outside linebackers. This Patriots defense, Bill Belichick's known for having versatile players or players that, either are versatile and can do, a little bit of everything, or players that have just one, specific role. I guess that's how every team is made up of players. But he just does it better. I really like that 3-4 outside, outside pass rusher group. And I think that they have, a sneaky, like they're a team that proves why you want linebackers on the team, or how good quality linebackers can work on your team. And I like their defensive backs. Obviously this is a defensive back or a defensive centered team. When you have J.C. Jackson and Stephon Gilmore, as well as the McCourty brothers, I think you're going to be all right. I'm not sure if they have both the McCourtys anymore, actually. but you know what I'm saying. Weaknesses, this is a team that's lacked playmakers for quite some time. I'm going to knock them for wide receiver. Nelson Aguilar can be a good slot for them, but I don't really trust N'Keal Harry. I don't really trust anything else they got on that wide receiver core. And as an Eagles fan, I still have trust issues with Nelson Aguilar, so take that with a grain of salt. Average and unproven. Their offensive line, I think, is pushes closer to above average, but I'm going to consider them average. Mac Jones is unproven. That's probably the nicest thing I've ever said about Mac Jones on one of our live shows. But I got my rule. I'm going to keep him unproven in this format. And I consider Cam Newton to be an average quarterback at this point in his career. Their running back crew, they have a good rushing attack, but they're the individual players themselves are pretty average. I like James White quite a bit. I think Ramondre Stevenson's going to carve out a really nice role with this team, but talent-wise, it's fairly average. They just have a good running game in general. And then interior defensive line, I think Christian Barmore can be a really good defensive tackle in the NFL, but again, rookie, so unproven. I think the rest of that core group is rather average at this point. Alec, what do you think of this? This roster configuration. What do you think of these players? What do you think of this financial situation?
I mean, they went out this past offseason. They spent a ton of money. They realized that this is a team that they wanted to bring in some young talent and mix it with some old veterans. Not old, but some veterans. And the biggest concern to me is how much money they spent in the wide receiver room to not have a legit wide receiver one. It's concerning. They did overpay for a couple players. I think they paid almost close to the same amount for a Corey Davis, or what he got, for guys who I think are 2s and 3s. I do think that Kendrick Bourne is a little bit underrated. I think Nelson Aguilar is a solid player. Trey Nixon might be the third best option on this team. I really liked him coming out of UCF as well. I don't know. Tight end room, they went out and they spent there, and they rightfully so. Both of those were two really good players. If they're going to use both tight ends, I know Jonnu Smith's a little bit banged up right now, but if they're going to use both players, that makes sense. And they can, because Jonnu Smith is a weapon just on the offensive side. He's an absolute weapon. The offensive line's got some solid players in there if healthy, and I like that. Mac Jones has looked great apparently in camp and in preseason. And, Mac Jones is what he is. Like Lorenz said, I mean, he's not going to win you an MVP, or I don't think he will. If he does, I'll be shocked. But he can win you games, and he did at Alabama. So we'll see.